What's up? Welcome to Stagehand 101, the workshop. My name is Kenny Barnwell. I'll introduce myself here in a second, but I just want to thank you for letting me come and speak with you guys here at the Pinellas Technical College show production program. I have the students here in the class. They've set up the production with their instructor, Jeff Wilson, the one and only. So I really appreciate you guys allowing me to come share with you in your class. I know that you guys have full up schedules with your work and learning the paths that you're interested in production, which is really awesome, right? Shows are really, really cool. But there's one key role to every show, which is the stagehand, which is the person that is there to support the production at the labor level. You know, it's the person that's there to help the technicians and the engineers and the designers and the crew leads really achieve the actual work that needs to be done. And I wrote a book, Stagehand 101, which is a comprehensive guide on how to show up as a stagehand the best way so you can become in demand. You know, there are a lot of people that are gifted the opportunity to be stagehands. And I say it like that, gifted the opportunity, because it is a gift. And it, for me, was life-changing in my career to become a stagehand. Quite literally was the spark that fueled a 20-plus year career getting to work with some of the top music artists in the world. And most stagehands, they don't realize the actual power that they have, the potential that they have to develop their ground level experience into something monumental. You know, it is the door. And it's one that is wide open to everyone to walk through, which is pretty cool. And unfortunately, what I've noticed with stagehands all across the world, for this matter, is that many stagehands are really just missing the mark. You know, they're really just not showing up with any sort of passion or really an understanding of their role in the work. And the reason why it matters so much is because it's so easy for a stagehand to look at themselves as just a laborer, just a helper. But what I know about stagehands is that they're one of the most important roles. They're a role that doesn't have a lot of decision-making capacity, but they're the glue. Without stagehands, we wouldn't be able to do shows. And in fact, during the pandemic comeback, after the pandemic and tours getting on the road, there's a lot of shows that have been canceled. Full-on huge shows that have been canceled because stagehands don't show up to calls, can't find enough stagehands in this time period. And because stagehands are so important, they'll literally have to cancel a multi-million-dollar show because there's not enough help. There's not enough stagehands. And so that's why I wrote the book, Stagehand 101, is to help people get really connected with why they're a stagehand, how to think about being a stagehand on the day-to-day, you know, and the actual role that you have. Now, in the book, I do share some of the technical aspects, but very little because tech changes. You know, when I started as a stagehand 20 years ago now, there are a lot of technology that is not even relevant anymore in the current events, you know, and so tech changes. But there's one thing that never changes, and that's the evergreen ideas and philosophies that I share in this book. You can take this book and apply it immediately, and you'll notice a rapid change in the response that you get from your fellow stagehands, the response from yourself, and of course, your employers. Because the idea is to be able to be in demand, you know? You want to be able to get experience as a stagehand, wouldn't you say? And the more experience that you have, the more developed you become. The more developed you become, the more opportunities present themselves. And the more opportunities that present themselves, you have more options in your life to create a really unique, cool experience. Now, I know that's a very esoteric kind of spiritual way to look at stagehand work, but that's the way I see it. I don't look at just somebody pushing cases and loading trucks, getting told what to do and when to eat and getting a free t-shirt. Certainly you get all of that stuff. But I look at stagehand as an opportunity, as an opportunity to develop, as the proving ground, as paid training. And if you look at it like I do, as paid training, you want to be able to show up and get the most out of the work. You want to be able to get the most out of the training. And how you do that is to get on the gigs. How you do that is become more capable and being offered those opportunities as a stagehand, because there's a lot of them, even within a stagehand. If you can look past the paycheck, you can look past the breaks and the free t-shirt, you will see a world of opportunities right in front of you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to freaking Stagehand 101. How about it? Yes. Okay, cool. Okay. Who the heck is Kenny Barnwell? I promise I will be brief. My name is Kenny Barnwell. I'm the author of Stagehand 101, as well as Backstage Pass, my first book, which is a book about how to get on tour. But the first step of touring is Stagehand 101, so here we go. I am a 20-plus year music business, concert event business veteran. I started as a stagehand in Atlanta, Georgia in 2002, at the end of 2002. I, early on in my career, had the opportunity to work all areas of production as a local crew technician. And I found that I really had an affinity and love for the music. I played music, so I naturally drifted towards Backline. Backline is all the music instruments, if you're not familiar. That's the department that deals with all the music instruments. So I had an opportunity to go from local crew to Backline, and then now, fast forward all these years, I've created a career as a Backline tech, stage manager, production manager, and tour manager for artists like Trace Atkins, Travis Tritt, Clint Black, The Fray. I worked with Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, Bon Jovi, a bunch of artists I currently work with while we're filming this, the Jonas Brothers, and many more. And so I'm coming at this from a place of experience that I want to share with you. I also, by the way, we have here watching live members of my community called Crew Coach. I am also a coach, a career development coach specifically for touring crew. And so they're here watching live because, hey, this is another key, another piece in the career development puzzle, because that's what I look at stagehand work as a career, Speaking of which, I meant to show this while I was going through all of that. There is me doing a variety of the things that I just talked about. Creeping on Ariana Grande up there. All right. If you don't know, also, we have a lot of education, a lot of free resources on our Instagram at Backstage Crew Careers. Follow this, because what I know about knowledge and education is that it is only stored potential. It is only stored potential until it's put into action, right? That's where the power lies. And so I don't withhold anything. It's why I'm a coach. I realize that sometimes you might know better and don't do better. And so I share everything on that Instagram right there. If you're interested in career building and stuff like that, all the tips, tactics, they're on there. So give it a follow. So what the heck is a stagehand? Here in the first part of the book, and I'm going to read it, I pulled Merriam-Webster's dictionary's definition of a stagehand. What they said is it's a stage worker that handles scenery, properties, and lights. Is that what you do as a stagehand? Scenery, property, and lights? That sums it up, right? Or Wikipedia says a stagehand is a person who works backstage or behind the scenes in theaters, film, television, or location performances. Their work includes setting up the scenery, lights, sound, props, rigging, and special effects for a production. That's definitely a closer definition for sure. You can kind of clearly see that there's not a ton of information about stagehand work. If you look it up, you'll find a lot of stuff about the unions, and you'll find a lot of stuff about theater work. But the reality is the majority of stagehands across the world are doing other types of events than theaters. They're doing concerts and festivals, and they're working on huge trade shows and corporate events. Like, stagehand work is vast. And the internet doesn't offer a whole lot of information about stagehands. It's funny, I look at the history of stagehands and I think about like the Coliseum days, where like there was stagehands bringing out the lions and the gladiators and stuff. It's a crude way to look at it, but it's the case, right? Like the history of event helpers, people that were actually there to support events have been forever. I mean, it feels like it's just a staple. There's always a need for stagehands all across the world and throughout history. And so this guide that I wrote, it's going to kind of expose this as a career. So if you're sitting here in this class, obviously you're wanting to be in event production, and I've mentioned before that stagehand is the best way to develop a career into doing this. You get to work all different types of events and get all different types of wide range of experience as a stagehand. And I really just encourage you guys, if you haven't done stagehand work at all, then I really want to encourage you to find stagehand work locally. And I wasn't going to talk about this in this workshop, but I just want to really offer you just a quick, actionable, high-level tip that's going to help you find some local crew stagehand work in your area today, okay? Let me set this book down. This is going to be cool. So here's how you do it so you can actually have an opportunity, because sometimes awareness is everything, okay? Stagehand work is no experience necessary. You don't need any connections. You just need to know what I'm about to share with you now, that anyone can become a stagehand, all right? What you're going to want to do is Google, in your case, Clearwater, St. Pete, or Tampa, stagehands, event production, local crew. You're going to Google that, all right? And what's going to come up is you're going to find these companies that are listed. There's 247, I think, 24/7. Is that the name of one of the local crew hands? Yeah, Rhino. Like you're going to Google them yourself, but do this in any city that you're watching from. Wherever you're watching from, put in your city, put in stagehands, local crew, and event production. You will see links to these websites, okay? Click into these companies. Most of the time, right at the top, especially in this climate where they're really looking for hands, they're really looking for workers, they'll have an app apply here, but otherwise scroll to the bottom of the web page and they will tell you exactly how to reach out to them. And the cool thing about stagehand work is it's a 1099 freelance labor type of work. So you can say yes to the ones that you can do and say no to the ones that you can't do. You won't lose your position or your work. It's an ability to be flexible to get the experience that you need now to continue building your career. So hopefully that was some helpful, actionable items so you can get started working as a stagehand and really take use of this information. All right, so as a stagehand, you're going to really want to understand when you're doing these gigs where you're at in the chain of command. Where is a stagehand land in the bigger picture of things, okay? So I'm going to kind of breeze by a lot of these pretty quickly, but a tour manager is somebody that manages the whole tour, the payroll, they book hotels, buses, that type of thing. A production manager will manage the entire production. The production manager will literally hire the designers and rent all of the gear for the tours and rent the trucks and lay out the production and physically on site actually manage the crew, right? It's a big responsibility. The stage manager is somebody that does just that. They manage the stage, but on a lot of these shows that you're going to work with stage managers, you're going to find that these stage managers are also managing loading docks. They're managing the trucks backing in and out. They're doing a lot more than just managing the stage. They're pushing the schedule along, and the stage manager is the key contact for a stagehand. The stage manager is the key contact on show sites for stagehands, because the stage manager will connect with the crew chief and who then directs the stagehands, okay? So remember that. Stage manager is that key person on the job sites. Production assistants are there to assist the kind of backstage of the production. They work with the production managers and tour managers to make sure the artists and dressing rooms and things like that have what they need. Tour accountants, you can pretty much figure that one out. Yes, when tours are big enough, we actually bring accountants on the road. When I worked with Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande and even with Jonas Brothers, we have tour accountants. It's a huge business, very, very large business. The merch manager does merchandising. They take care of all of the inventory, ordering new product. thinking about retail in such a way that it's design of t-shirts, things like that. Wardrobe assistants, obviously know what that's about. It's helping with the artist wardrobes backstage. Caterers and cooks, we carry them on the road oftentimes. Sometimes on tours, these cooks and caterers travel with us. And as a stagehand, you will oftentimes get to eat the food. Okay, so just something to consider, but sometimes they're with the tours. You know, the reason why all of these positions matter to a stagehand is the more you understand where you're at and where your role is in the bigger ecosystem as a stagehand, the better you can communicate with these different roles and just really understand that you might pass by some of these top people in the hallways. Actually, you're going to. Okay, the bus and truck drivers. Obviously, the bus drivers drive the personnel and the crew around. Truck drivers, very integral positions that stagehands will work hand in hand with, by the way, is the truck drivers. Oftentimes, the truck drivers themselves will be the ones that call the packs, that receive the cases and work with the stagehands to put the stuff back in the truck and take the stuff out of the truck. Truck drivers are very integral to tours. The front of house engineer and the monitor engineer, these are the two audio team positions that you guys obviously know about here in this production class. But if you're watching this and you don't know about this, the front of house audio engineer takes care of the sound that the audience hears, and the monitor engineer takes care of the sound that the performers and the artists and the musicians hear on stage. The lighting designer and the lighting tech, these are the lighting team positions, and there are more positions in these different roles. Sometimes it just depends. Sometimes you might have 3, 4, 5, 6 different lighting or audio team members or video team members and so on. So the lighting tech will support the lighting designer's vision and production and will run stagehands. You know, all of these roles you will work hand in hand with as a hand. Pardon me one second. We're going to have to cut this out. This dang ear, it keeps falling. I know it. I'm supposed to just smush it, he says. It ain't smushing. I got some big ears, too. I'm surprised this thing ain't just hooked. I don't know, man. All right, it just feels weird. I guess I'm just not used to it. Okay, pardon me. So the video director and the video engineer, these are positions that you obviously kind of like what Jeff's doing over here now. These are video positions, and they will take care of the big video walls and the screens. They will also direct the show. The backline techs are the ones that work with the instruments directly. The guitar techs, drum techs, keyboard techs. These are the people that work directly with the artists and the musicians working with their instruments. The set carps. The set carps are working with the big risers and the decks, the stages. They might build the elevators, the lifts, the catapults, right? The set carts get to do all that. The pyrotechnics obviously are the pyro and the blast and stuff. But as a stagehand, you will get a chance to work even with the pyro. Sometimes a stagehand, they'll have a pyro hand go in and help pack confetti or pack blast. Right? How cool would that be to get to go in the back secure room and pack some blast as a stagehand? You'll get an opportunity to do that and work hand in hand with the pyrotech. And guess what? If you ever wanted to be a pyrotech, you're sitting next to the guy or girl that could help you, right? Pretty cool, pretty powerful position to be as a stagehand. That's why this information is so valuable. The automation tech does just that. They fly people through the air on these gags, elevators and catapults and lifts and all kinds of automated craziness that goes on shows. And there's a lot more specialty positions for touring. We've got drone pilots and all kinds of stuff. But as a stagehand, you will have the opportunity to help and work with every single one of these positions. And allow me to point out once again from a career perspective, the power of proximity. These people are doing what you want to do for your career, and they're doing it at the top. And you have the opportunity to be close to them, to get to, be an example around these people, to potentially exchange information and connect with them. That's the power of being a stagehand. They're watching. Here are the local positions. You've got the promoter rep, which is the actual person that set up the show. It's the actual person that actually brought the artist in and paid for everything. They're on site. Venue production managers, somebody's in charge, somebody's receiving the tour. They might be in charge of the AC in the building and stuff like that, but they're there. Your runners and PAs. Runners are a position that is a local crew position, much like a stagehand, but what they do is they use their personal vehicles, or they'll use a provided vehicle to pick artists up from the hotels and drop them off, to run to the grocery store, to bring stuff back for the dressing rooms. This is a local crew position that doesn't require any experience, that also gets to work with some of these top people. So that is a very interesting position as well, the runner. Ushers, they obviously work at venues to help people get seated. Same thing with security. Security is another touring position I didn't even put on there, but we often, these days especially, will have entourages of security personnel. But locally, there's security stewards, which is the crew chief, which is like the lead of the stagehands. That's the one that works with the stage manager to delegate all the things. They're called the steward or the crew chief. And then finally, you have the stagehand, the glue. You have the workers, the laborers, the people that are specialty hired to come and help the tours and the leads and the corporate techs and the engineers to successfully put on their shows. And you can see how important and integral they are, but I just wanted to really show you the ecosystem of personnel that it takes to put on a single show. With Justin Bieber, we had 175 people on our tour between everybody. That's a lot of people for one show, to make one 2.5, 3-hour show happen, But we couldn't do that, even with the tour personnel, without the 100 stagehands that we would have at every venue, So that's what I'm trying to tell you, is most of the time we have more stagehands to help than tour personnel, okay? So hopefully that was helpful. Has this been good so far? This has been cool? All right. So some of the types of events that you'll get to work in theaters, you'll get to work in arenas, stadiums, hotel ballrooms, conventions and trade shows, fashion shows. I've done DVD shoots and filming spots, and of course the circus. Back when Ringling was around, I actually was literally a stagehand with Ringling, getting to help set up the circus. So that's pretty cool. Hey, listen, as far as the types of events that you get to do, look how much experience that you get to have. Because a lot of people don't look at this as a stagehand. This is experience you're building. You as a stagehand, in a single year, could work every type of event, every type of flavor, every type of pace. Working in a hotel ballroom, for instance, where you're doing corporate stuff as a stagehand, it's very slow. It's the same gear, it's audio and lights and screens and stuff, but it's very slow. The pace is slow. You might build everything as a stagehand, and the client comes in and says, hey, can you move everything over 6 inches? That's that type of work. Or you're a rock and roll stagehand, right? Where you're doing concerts and the stuff's coming out of the truck and you're making this huge show happen in hours, and then sound check, and then you do the show, and then you strike it, and you just load it all out that same night. You'll get all that experience, the finite detailed tech stuff, to where you can really pay attention. Sometimes as a stagehand, you'll get handed a lighting plot and said, hey, here's a lighting plot in this hotel ballroom. Here's all of our gear. You feel good about this? Sometimes you might get trusted with that type of responsibility, even as a stagehand. Those are really valuable learning moments. Valuable learning moments. People pay for that type of education, So this right here, the types of experiences that you get to do, is very, very valuable to understand. All right, so what you need to know about being a stagehand from the beginning, basically you got to understand your positioning, What you want to do is you want to understand that as a stagehand, you're on a local call labor list, When I first started in Atlanta, there was 200 people on this labor list, and I was at the bottom of it. Now, as a stagehand, you could also work for unions, and unions work off seniority and hierarchy, and so there's a lot of slow growth when it comes to unions. But in non-unions, you call up there, and it's sometimes first come, first serve. Some of it's relationships and credibility, but understand that it's a list. It's a list, and it only gives you back the opportunity as much as you go to call it and activate it. In other words, there are people waiting at these stagehand companies for your call to see if you are interested in doing a gig. And so you call up there to get a gig and say, hey, is there anything available this week or today? Sometimes things pop up quickly. You know, sometimes as a stagehand, you need to be readily available. You might get a call, what is what it's called. You might get on a call, and it might be tomorrow. And so as a stagehand, you want to be ready. Another important thing as a stagehand to know is in getting ready, you need to be prepared with the few things that a stagehand needs to be successful on the job, okay? If you do what I'm about to tell you to do, you are going to be ahead of about 90% of stagehands. 90% of stagehands show up disinterested, they don't care, they're not prepared, and they're just there for the shirt and the check and the free food, okay? So if you can show up wearing blacks, black clothing, you need to wear blacks, pants, shorts, shirt, be prepared in blacks. And the reason why that matters is because there's these positions which we'll get to later called show call positions, and they require you to be wearing black clothes. And if you don't have black clothes, you might not get considered. You know, if you just didn't come prepared, you might not even get considered to be on the show call. So come prepared. Not to mention it's a level of professionalism. It shows that you care, right? Another thing is most stagehands don't show up today with tools. A pair of gloves, mechanics gloves or something, have them on you, man. You're loading and unloading trucks. You're working with dirty cases, shards of metal, right? Have them on you. A crescent wrench, a C wrench we call it. If you don't know what that is, it's like a little adjustable wrench. You can get a little carabiner and hook it to your belt and hang it off your belt. Have a crescent wrench on you. Most stagehands these days don't come with a crescent wrench, you know, and the reason why is because there's a lot of bolts and nuts and a variety of things that need your crescent wrench. And most of the time, stagehands don't come with a crescent wrench. One's needed, and literally you might have one stagehand out of a whole group that has a crescent wrench, you know? And the other stagehands, they look at each other like, you know? Come with a crescent wrench. It's very simple, but 90% of stagehands are ill-prepared. And they don't realize that this gets noticed and seen, especially by tour people. And to be honest with you, we don't typically, as a tour person, remember that one single stagehand. We remember the city. That city of stagehands, they were frustrating. That city of stagehands came ill-prepared. And so not only are you representing you're representing the company, you're representing the city, that venue, you know. And so all you have to do is show up with your C-wrench. Show up wearing blacks, show up with your gloves, and another thing is show up with a blade, a knife. You're going to be cutting tape, and you're going to be cutting tie line, and you're going to be needing a blade. Oh, let's see it.
Or somebody.
Or somebody, yes. You might need a blade or somebody. This is a crescent wrench, if you don't know, just to show you guys. This is an adjustable C-wrench. I remember when they were like, okay, Kenny, just bring your blade, your gloves, and your C-wrench. I'm like, cool. I literally, and we didn't have Google back when I started. I didn't know what a C-wrench was. But I come to find out it's a crescent wrench. One of these is like $8, $7, probably cheaper, right? Grab it, carabiner, hook it to you, some gloves, a little clip on a knife and a blade, and you are prepared, you know? Maybe boots, you know? Not all gigs require boots, but some stagehand companies require boots. You know, at least a tough work shoe. Make it black. Be consistent. There might be some gigs that you don't have to wear black. Just wear black. You know, you want to be considered. You want to come best prepared and best considered. All right? Sorry, guys. This mic thing is, it's like, am I Garth Brooks or something? Good Lord. Okay. How to get on the calls. Well, again, I mentioned it was a labor list. So what you do is if the company... You can do it two ways. A lot of stagehands, I'm going to tell you the ways that other stagehands are doing it negatively. So maybe that'll actually help you know the right way to do it. But a lot of stagehands just wait, right? They get on their call list and they just wait. They just, you know, wait till they get called for the gigs. The thing is it's a relationship game. You know what I mean? You want to show them that you want to be there, that you care. You ain't just waiting. And so what you do is you call them. Call them and just say, hey, this is such and such. I just wanted to check in and see if anything's available, right? They might have a different process. They might have a group text system. They might have a Some stagehand companies might even post their opportunities to call or get gigs on Twitter. Who knows? Or on their Facebook page or something. But either way, there's a way to stay actively asking for the opportunities, and that's how you get on the calls. Aside from showing up and doing a great job, to get on the next call, to get on the original call is you want to reach out. When I first started as a stagehand in Atlanta, I lived outside the city, and it was a 45-minute drive into the city to get to work as a stagehand. Now, it was so cool, the experience to get to work as a stagehand. At least I was like, man, this is going to be so cool. And I didn't know that it was a really busy time in Atlanta, but I was at the bottom of a really large stagehand list, And so they called me for my first gig, and my first gig was what's called a standby position. And as a standby, what it is a stagehand company, for the sake of insurance and protection, they have to book some extra people on the call, standbys, because a lot of stagehands are not responsible and don't show up. And so notoriously, they get somebody to get quickly replaced by a standby position. And my first opportunity was to work at the Georgia Dome, a venue that doesn't exist anymore, to work as a standby. And this was 2001. And I go, okay, cool. So I'm like, I don't know what that is. And they're explaining to me, like, look, you don't get paid. You got to come park, check in with the crew lead. And if someone doesn't show up, then you can get on the call and get paid. And I was like, okay, sounds simple enough. Count me in, go down, pay to park, walk down there, check in with the steward. And sure enough, everyone shows up, I was like, oh man, I was like, but one cool thing was the loading dock doors to the Georgia Dome was open. And I could see the production going on. Like it was this huge TD Jakes convention. And I was like, this is so freaking cool. And I could see the lights and the trucks and like the audio. And I was like, whoa. And I'm a teenager. I'm like, man, I'm going to get to do this? All good, like I'll be back, right? So next day, come back as a standby again. People show up. I don't get on the call. I do this all week. In fact, into the next week, I did this for 10 days straight. And I, at this point, was broke. I had to get to work. I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to do this music business thing anymore. I've been a standby for too long. I'm costing me money to go down to Atlanta. And so I had a friend of mine. He calls me. He said, hey, Kenny, do you want to do some construction work? It's secure. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning, get you to do some construction work. And I was like, man, you know what? Let's do it. Like this whole stagehand thing is a pipe dream, like it would be so cool, but like I can't afford to keep going down there. And so that night, I get a call from the stagehand company. Kenny, you want to come be a standby? And I was like, standby. And so I was like, I don't know if I could do it, And so I immediately called my friend back and said, listen, I need to go be a standby, because if this happens, I could be a stagehand. I get to set up concerts and stuff, like this is a big deal to me, And so I go down to Atlanta. I turn down the construction job, go down, pay to park, check in with the steward. I'm like the first there in the morning, And sure enough, I hear my name called. Kenny, he's so excited. He's like, you're on, And I was like, yes, finally. So I finally, after all of that perseverance, after being a standby for that many times, I ended up being a standby for 12 times was what the number was. And the reason why I know that is because the steward called, or the crew booker called me the next day and said, hey, Kenny, just want to let you know, because you've really proven yourself here, you're never going to be a standby again. And you're full-time with us. In fact, do you want to work Dixie Chicks tomorrow? And I was like, yes, But if I would have allowed, myself to give up and not get the opportunity to become a stagehand, I wouldn't be talking to you guys here today, that's for sure. But being a stagehand was the thing that saved my life, But sadly, too many stagehands are just there doing the gig, and they don't see the power in this. And that's why it's so important to understand how to get on the calls is about reaching out, putting yourself out there, being perseverant, saying yes to the standby gigs, saying yes to whatever they have, because that's going to get you on the calls, saying yes and helping them out with what they need you for. Important things to consider: show up with your tools and blacks, when you first get in, get checked in with your steward and get prepared to work. Like finish your smokes, put your phone up, like get ready to actually do the work, you know? Never use your cell phone at work. Don't do it. Too many stagehands. I've literally been on stage. I was doing a Sarah Bareilles tour a couple of years ago, and I'm standing on stage, setting up Sarah's piano in the middle of the stage, surrounded by stagehands. We're about to lift this huge, heavy grand piano, and I go, all right, you ready to tip? And I look around, and dude's on his phone. Oh, yeah. I'm like, dude, don't use your phone. Like, this is serious, right? He's laughing because he goes, yeah, he sees this all the time. This is simple stuff. Like, it's so sad that I would have to even point that out. I even had to put it in caps on my little slide here. It's so important. That's crazy because it's that important, you know? What if I didn't know the guy was on his phone and I go to tip the piano and Sarah's piano come crashing? People are doing this all the time. To add to that, that same guy literally was smoking his vape on stage, his weed vape on stage, blowing it. What, man? What? Like I'm the problem, you know? That's the stagehands we're talking about. That's why people learn this stuff that I teach in my book and they go, well, this seems pretty obvious stuff. No, it ain't. You know, common sense is not always common practice. Okay? Don't wander off. Let somebody know. This happens all the time. You know, you might be in the middle of doing a gig and, you know, especially me as a backline tech where it's like there's some things that I need to do and I need my stagehand to wait for 5-10 minutes. Next thing you know, I turn around to, oh, where's my person? They've taken off, you know? They never let me know. Happens all the time. And then I have to go find them, and then their steward has to come to them and be like, why didn't you say with it? And then next thing you know, it's like you become that person. You become known as that person. Just don't leave. If you got to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom, but let your steward know and let the person you're assigned to know. It's that simple. Even if you're like hanging out on the loading dock, just walk over to the steward and just be like, hey man, I'm just going to, real quick, just let you know. It's simple. I know it seems obvious, but it goes a long way because most people don't. And then when they're coming out of the bathroom and the steward's been wandering the venue looking for them, they go, what? You know, it just, So don't wander off, let somebody know. Have a good attitude. You know, having a good attitude, it literally means showing up being happy and grateful and joyous and appreciative, you know, of getting to be there. That's what a good attitude means. And that trickles down. You know, I always like to say positivity loves company. You know, I'm an optimist, so. Positivity loves company. When you're that stagehand, you're going to attract that. Trust. Listen carefully and get clarity. You know, here's something with stagehands that is a big miss. And stagehands, I'll work with stagehands a lot. And I'll direct the stagehands and I'll say, hey, go ahead and roll this case up stage left and roll this cable out. And then when you do that, just plug this here. You got it? And just like, yeah. And then you can tell that they don't got it, you know? But the thing is all you have to do is, I'm sorry, 1 second. So you want me to, it's up stage left. And because if you just take the few extra bit to get the clarity, it's not an embarrassment for you as a stagehand. It's a sign of respect that you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. It's not I'm dumb or I'd missed it. Like, don't be afraid to get clarity. It helps you. You need to do it. So if you missed it, say, I'm sorry, 1 second. So the sub-snake you said, it's the yellow one? Okay, cool, right? Get the clarity. It helps you. Don't be timid. This is a big one, You know, back to the Sarah Bareilles piano example. If you've ever set up a grand piano, it's on this big cart. It sits upright. It stands tall. You cannot be timid when you're moving that thing. You know, you like when I say timid, it's like grab it. You know, hold on to it. You know, grab the other end of that case. Jump in there. You know, don't be afraid to jump in that truck or grab that cable or help fix the cable wrap. Like, don't be timid when you're a stagehand, you know. It doesn't mean to be some crazy aggressive person, but it does mean to just step up. You know, if you see it, just step up. You don't have to worry about it like you're a hand. That's what you're there for. Work with urgency. Sincerely work with urgency. Keep up. Keep up. You know, it's like, hey, can you go grab the tape? I mean, that's what you get from a lot of stagehands. What's cool is if you just stepped it up, then you'll stand out. It's crazy that I'm having to kind of lay it out in this basic way, but these are what's stopping most stagehands from getting on the next calls, for being enjoyable to work with, for being considered for next level opportunities. And influence is real. You'll see a groups of stagehands that are always together complaining about the truckload, complaining about the catering. They're going to complain about a little bit of working past. They're going to complain about having to push up the ramp or bring the stuff down the ramp, or they're going to complain about the cold, or they're going to complain about everything. They're there. These stagehands, they're on every call. All across the world, by the way. I've worked with French stagehands, Dutch stagehands, Australians. Everywhere, every bunch of stagehands has a group of stagehands that complain about doing it. Don't get caught up. It's easy, especially when you're new and you're on the gig, and those stagehands are just like, yeah, you deserve this, man. Yeah, you need this. I can't believe they're making us stay like this, and why aren't they breaking us for lunch? And then you're going to find yourself in that going, yeah, maybe I do deserve more. It's like, hey, you're a stagehand. Like, just do the gig. Like, it's all good. Do the gig, and you'll get more. But if you get complaining, if you're going to be a complainer and you're going to be influenced by it, you're going to get a lot of the things to complain about. You'll get them. Believe me, you want to complain? You'll get them. You'll get the things to complain about. You'll attract them. So be mindful of your influence as a stagehand. Be a fan and not fanatical. I made this mistake hard one time. The artist, like, you don't typically go and as a stagehand and go talk to the artist. You can be a fan. I mean, sure, I've worked with some legends, but you can't be fanatical. One time I was doing the Tony Hawk Boom Boom Huck Jam. It was a tour back in the early 2000s. And I saw Tony Hawk in the hallway, and I was like, ooh, Tony Hawk. And I'm a stagehand, You got to know your role. You got to know your place. And this is where I kind of crossed that line, because most stagehands are just like, you'll like tell people, like, hey, man, you can't be like fanatical. Like, you can, appreciate the art and all that stuff, but you can't like gurm these people. You can't fan these people, You got to, like, you're a stagehand, so now you're like part of the thing. You're behind the curtain now, And so you can't like go and bug the artist and talk to the artist and all that stuff, and it's kind of part of it, And a lot of stagehands will tell you, well, I'm not starstruck, but there you go. Like, you'll see these stagehands every single time going to these artists to try to be like, hey, can I get a selfie? Or I've seen stagehands. I saw a stagehand in a Tampa show, actually. I was out with Keith Urban, and the stagehand was like, Keith goes out on the B stage in the middle, and this stagehand, during sound checks, like, filming him because he's out there laying cables on the camera and stuff, and he's like filming him like this. I'm like going, that's what I'm talking about. Be a fan. You can appreciate Keith. He's awesome. But don't be fanatical. Like, know your role, I don't think he's back as a stagehand, that guy. Okay, typical concert show day schedule. This is cool. Your call time is the time that you're asked to show up, okay? I always say this, man, show up 30 minutes early. If your call time is 8 o'clock, show up at 7:30, Just make it a rule for yourself. Give yourself that buffer. It's not because, late's early and early's late or whatever that saying is. It's like, hey, I got respect for me. I got respect for you. And hey, what if something happens? At least I gave myself a buffer, right? So call time. Then you've got your load in. If you don't know what a load in is the time that the show comes out of the trucks into the venue and gets set up. So load in lasts for hours, okay? It's a long part of the day. Then lunch. Sometimes lunch is in between load ins. You'll have a sound check. A sound check is making sure the production is correct. Most of the time on a schedule, you won't see this on the schedule, but there's a thing called line check. It's something that the tech crew does that you as a stagehand might get to witness. But it is literally just like quick checking the lines, make sure everything works before a sound check, because a sound check is like more accurate, We even during sound checks, like, just to give you a little inside scoop from tour people, is we actually ask the musicians to try to like step it up. We'll literally ask our players to play like they're in the show so we can really capture a real sound check. Because sometimes they'll just, So things like that. Sound check is like an actual rehearsal. Dinner is obviously dinner. You as a stagehand, by the way, you'll get an opportunity to get fed. Especially if you get show calls and you get to stay, you'll get sometimes breakfast, lunch, and dinner on top of your pay, which is pretty cool. Show call is the time that you are supposed to show up if you have a show call position. I'm going to talk about some of those in a minute. Show call is literally if you have a position that serves the show as a stagehand. There's a handful of them that you could actually get to be a part of the show as a stagehand, which is pretty cool. That's what show call is. Show time, obviously we know what that is. And then loadout is the loadout, the strike. It's also called the strike, okay, when you're striking all the gear. These are the show call positions I was talking about. Spot op or spotlight operator. Man, when I first started as a stagehand, it was like old conventional ways. There was like old par cans and things like that. We didn't have a lot of intelligent, actually when I first started, we didn't have any intelligent lighting. And you used to have to climb up these ladders on top of the truss and flip upside down and like focus the lights. It's called the lighting focus. Or sometimes they would attach spotlights literally on top of the truss, and we would climb up there, get in a bucket seat, strap into a harness, and shoot a spotlight above the stage. And we would have the opportunity to do that. I've done that sometimes in a flame suit because there's pyro shooting up. You might do wrestling matches or something and get to be above the stage. Those positions now don't much exist anymore, the truss spots and the lighting focus positions, because now what it is it's called robo spots. Roby, I think it's Roby, right? They made a robo spot, which is brilliant. And so now spotlights are operated from a robot, a little LED screen and handlebars from the back, like you're above, and then the light you would have been in a seat was up the top. But that's an opportunity to get to actually be a part of the spotlight. You know, I was working David Bowie as a spotlight operator years ago, and he had this one part of his show that was all black, and then all of a sudden he pops out into the beam of light. Just David Bowie, completely black in a beam of light. And that light was me. But it was coming from a spotlight 300 feet away. And we were using these Gladiator, what are they, 3000s or something? Yeah. Gladiator 3000s or something. Huge spotlights. And there's a technique in spotlight operation called ghosting. And back then, it basically means like you open the frame a little bit so you can almost see the light in the dark. It's called ghosting, but it's not really on. So you can know that if you're in the right spot or not. And the LD for David Bowie was like, listen, stagehands, no ghosting. You better be on it. And I was like, oh my God. And he's like going from here to here to here. And I'm like, I hope my beam of light is on David right now. It better be on Bowie. And sure enough, you know, I'm on him, you know. Just stuff like that. Having the opportunity to really be a part of the show as a stagehand. You see what I'm saying? You see why I'm so passionate about this? I don't look at this as some job of pushing cases and getting a free t-shirt. I look at this as like, man, I'm getting to be a part of that, right? I have a lot of memories like that. I shot truss spot for wrestling and share and all kinds of really cool stuff as a stagehand before I got on tour. A deckhand is somebody that literally helps the risers and the opening acts move on and off the stage during the show. Sometimes they have like those big curtain drops, what's called kabukis. Stagehands will be there at the bottom to catch it and help run it off. Getting to be a part of the show, bringing props on and off, you know, the show, during the show, getting to be a part of the show in that capacity. Stagehands will get to do that as a deckhand. A cable page. A cable page is a stagehand position that wraps a cable. You know, this is why like the fundamentals are so important that you're learning here with Jeff, because there's a position that is called a cable page that you will literally stand behind the camera operator on a concert stage or a festival or something like that, and you will make sure that the cable is wrapped and unwrapped and secure so the camera operator is not tripping over himself. And it's a very important position. Like they couldn't even be in a handheld camera operator without the cable page, which is a stagehand position. You see how important? And it's a fundamental skill, wrapping a cable over under, that has to be learned and done to achieve success as a cable page. But hey, as a stagehand, from his point of view, it's an extra $100 added to his paycheck to get to be a cable page, if you look at it like that. Camera operator, like I said, you have the opportunity to run a front of house camera, or sometimes, most of the time, not the handheld as a stagehand. Usually that's a tour person, but sometimes it'll be a tripod camera in the front of the stage, or what they call a front of house long lens camera. As a stagehand, you'll get to do it. I remember I was working Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young show. Some of you guys may have heard of them from old. And I was a stagehand getting to run camera on David Crosby all night. Like, it was cool, you know? That's a stagehand. My image was up on the big screen. my shot. It was pretty cool. So some of those show call positions. Stage directions. This is fundamental stuff. If you don't know, by the way, everybody's getting a copy of Stagehand 101 by the end of this. A digital download. You, sir, thank you. Thank you for buying copies. Appreciate your support. But you can snap a photo of this. That'd be cool. This is basic stuff, guys. Learn this. Upstage, offstage, onstage, downstage. Just real quick, we'll run over it. This stuff is just good vernacular to know. Just kind of understand. How can you know where you're going if you don't know where the heck you are, right? If you don't have a map. This is a map. When we take stuff out of the truck as a stagehand, you might have the guy on the dock or the girl on the dock say, hey, send this out to downstage left. Hey, run this out front of house. Run this out house right. Run this out upstage center, right? Like those stage directions, they call it, are all based on this. So if you're standing on stage and you're looking at the audience, okay, that is the house. You guys are in the house. You guys are actually in the front of house position, looking at me, right? So if you're looking at the stage, house right, house left, right, from your position. If you're on stage, it's stage left, stage right, down stage, up stage. And here's a way that down and up stage was presented to me years ago. Is imagine like a church choir or something like that. In the olden days, in theaters, the stages were literally raked, meaning there's a slight incline. In fact, if you tour Europe today, hopefully some of you guys get to tour one day, you'll get to tour through these old theaters that are literally raked. They have a tow rail on the bottom of the stage that you have to hold your cases against because the upstage is a literal upstage, which is pretty crazy. But that's what that's from, that kind of upstage, downstage, stage left, stage right. You need to know this stuff. I'll sometimes have a stagehand drop my power and say, hey, I need this on the downstage left of the drum riser. That's a pretty specific location. Where's downstage left of the drum riser, right? Learn this stuff. This is it. That's the map. It's pretty simple, but once when you learn it, man, it's like it's old hat. It's the vernacular that you need to know. The areas of the venue in production will be real brief with this stuff. Obviously the stage, loading docks, you know what that is. Front of house, like we talked about. Monitor world, which is most of the time on a stage left side. For whatever reason, monitors have historically been stage left. They can be right. It all depends, but most of the time, for whatever weird reason, it's always on the seemingly left. Guitar worlds can either be either side of the stage. They are the area that's the guitar technicians set up, and they have their work boxes and stuff. Obviously, you can kind of see that it's all about worlds and universes and stuff. Video world is where all of that video stuff would be set up. It's usually in a backstage hallway. Oftentimes, it's kind of like set up like a TV station, and they're in a backstage hallway. They don't have to be like direct view of the stage in most cases. Dimmer beach, okay? Dimmer beach, if you're not familiar with dimmers are the power distros to power all of the lighting and the video and the audio. Mainly in lighting and video, the dimmer beach would be on like an upstage right area or an upstage area of some sort that all of the feeder cable and the power distros, they usually kind of want it on its own little area because it is magnetized, it is magnetic, it causes a lot of interference, there's a lot going on over there in dimmer beach, okay? So if you ever got asked to send something to dimmer beach, you know that it's where all of the power distros are. It's all where the big cables are coming out to power the lighting. The production offices are usually not far from the stage with the dressing rooms in a back hallway somewhere. As a stagehand, you will be asked to push wardrobe cases in dressing rooms. You will be asked to help production take stuff in and out of production offices and stuff like that. You'll work hand in hand with these people. Merch booth or table is obviously usually in the crowd area. Sometimes in these trucks, when you're a stagehand, you might be asked to send all of the merch out to the merch area or the merch table. And then catering, most of you guys will be looking for that right away. You know what that's all about. Look for the signs. There's always signs in venues, by the way, that point arrows to most of these places. Here's the main areas of production and just kind of some of the day-to-day work, what it looks like. As an audio hand, you're going to be opening cases. You know, just remember things like righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, some of these basic, simple things, right? Like the way, most of you probably know how road cases work, but get familiar. It is insane to me sometimes that stagehands don't know simply how a road case works. But they let other things prevent them from learning it, like being timid. They're not, they're being too timid to ask. They're not taking, they're not really taking initiative. And a lot of people, guys, I know I say lefty loosey, righty tighty on here in opening cases. I'm only putting this stuff on here because people miss it as stagehands. Professional stagehands miss it. He's a dude shaking his head because he knows. Running XLR cables and subsnakes is something that you'll do. I'm going to use this vernacular in this workshop today because I want you to just hear it. If you've never heard these words before, I want you to hear it, because as a stagehand, and especially going back to reference this workshop in the book, you're going to be using this terminology a lot, because this is what the type of work that you're going to be doing. So if you're ever assigned with an audio tech, you're going to be running XLR cables, which are the mic cables. You're going to be putting out subsnake boxes, which are like the boxes that have all the mic inputs, right? I am not going to get too far in the technical stuff because this stuff changes. I mean, they're working on wireless snakes right now. Like, okay, I'm not going to teach you guys too much because the tech's going to change, but I will say this stuff is fundamental. You're going to be running out mic cables, subsnakes. You're going to be running the snake. As a stagehand, you might be running the snake. It's a huge cable. The snake cable could be a 300-foot long cable. And when they say running the snake, you're running it from monitor world all the way around to front of house. As a stagehand, you're going to be wrapping a cable and pushing a case. It sounds simple, but even stagehands fumble with the cable, are too timid to push the case. And so these are some of the things that you'll be doing. Tipping or tipping the console. Tip the console or tipping the console on an easy tilt. Tipping the console literally means tipping up these big desks. If an audio guy or girl comes to you and says, hey, we're going to tip the console, stagehands, come on, follow me. By the way, work with urgency. It's quick. The work moves quick. Hey, stagehands, we're going to tip the console. Let's do this. 4 hands on it. Okay, grab it. Take the case off. All right, let's tip it. This is how fast this work moves, And so if you can just kind of understand the vernacular, tipping a console, you now know that if you're ever working as a stagehand and an audio guy says tip the console, you guys are going to go to monitor world or the front of the house to tip the desk. Place the wedges, right? Placing monitor wedges on stage. Building the mic stands. Be sure to listen carefully. I added this in here on this list because it's missed, but listen carefully. As a lighting hand to work with on scissor and bucket lifts. Like, hey, maybe you don't drive one right now, but as a stagehand, you have an opportunity to learn how to drive a bucket lift and a scissor lift, because you're going to need them to go up and fix lights and hang lights and repair lights. And hey, if you're afraid of heights, then here's an opportunity to not be afraid, because you'll get to work on that stuff. Lighting gels and gobos. These are literally the colors and the design patterns that get put into some of these lights. This is stuff that Jeff's teaching you guys here in his program. Dimmers are obviously what powers the lighting rig. We talked about dimmer beach earlier. Feeder cable are the types of the cables. Feeder, every department uses feeder cable. It's the power cable. It's the heaviest cable in use in our industry. It is called feeder cable. It's a heavy copper power cable. Socapex and fan outs are literally like, imagine when you plug up lights like a power strip. Okay, you got one cable that has 6 inputs. Well, in concert lighting and stuff, it's the same thing. It's just with bigger cables and more spread out inputs. So instead of a hard power strip, you've got what's called a fan out, which would be 1 to a few different cable strips that come out. It's the same concept as a simple power strip that you would use in your home, but on a bigger scale. So if you can look at lighting like that, kind of what you're doing with lighting in that scale. Lighting consoles are very similar to house dimmer switches, literally on the wall. Like you guys were programming lights. It's a very similar thing as a house dimmer switch with a lot more switches and a lot more capability. And of course, with programming capability where you can tell it what to do. DMX cable is the information cable in lighting. It is directional. It matters when it comes to hooking up lights. It sends data in a certain direction. And so as a stagehand, when you're asked to connect lights and to work with lighting and DMX cable and to connect lights, you'll do what's called daisy chaining, which means connecting one light to the next, till ultimately the information goes to the console, or what's called an opto splitter, right? you're going to do this as a stagehand, you know. The more you can just kind of understand this vernacular. I'm sorry if this is the first time you're ever hearing the words DMX or optosplitter or whatever, that's okay. You know, you're going to hear this stuff as a stagehand. Let me just tell you, stagehands that are working the gigs, a lot of them don't even know this stuff. I have a crew coach member. She is deaf and hard of hearing, and she is a stagehand in Las Vegas. And her issue has been the fact that she can't get any of her fellow stagehands, any information from her stagehands, any help from her stagehands to know on what's going on with some of the stuff that she doesn't know because they don't know. She says that literally every single stagehand she asks, hey, what's this cable? What's that? What is this? They have no clue. You know? So that's why this stuff's so important, man. You know? She messaged me yesterday and said that this next show that she was on as a stagehand had all these cases labeled and all of this stuff that was so helpful. She was instructing other stagehands on what to do and how and where to put stuff because she was able to find that the labels and all that stuff helps. And so you can do this as a stagehand. It's just about being proficient and understanding that most stagehands don't even come with this type of insight. This is next level stuff. And then, of course, securing your cables on the truss with tape and tie line. You will have tape and tie line that you attach and clean the cables up. Everything's about nice, clean runs, right? Video hand, you'll work with lighting and video. Sometimes video panels are used in lighting. Sometimes they'll be along stairs and along stages and risers as lighting elements, but even though they're video screens, by the way. We have projection screens like this one. And there's also LED walls that you'll get to work with as a stagehand. You'll get to connect these big LED walls on the carts and stuff. And the cool thing about being a stagehand working in all of these departments, sorry, let me adjust this. The cool thing about being a stagehand working in all of these departments is people like me are there to help you. You know, when I say you're going to get to build projectors and walls and stuff like that, you're going to have the technician that is in charge of that wall or those projectors or those screens telling you exactly what to do every step of the way, you know? But now you can go, okay, well, I'm already a little bit understanding when they say projector or they say, you know, LED or they say screen, right? I'm already knowledgeable enough to know what they're talking about now. Once when they show me once, I can go in there and do it myself for the next person. So the next tour person or tech comes through and says, hey, I want you to build this screen. All you have to do is, and you can go, oh, cool, no, I know how to build this screen. I'll take care of it. You know what I mean? And so you can help them out, really be efficient. Because that's what this is about. Because if you do that, that client, whoever it is going to go to your steward and say, hey, I want Kenny back. It's happened to me, by the way, a lot. I want this guy back, you know? When you know that you've really been effective is when you get booked on those 1, 2, and 4 person stagehand calls, like those small clients, you know, the ones that like your stagehand company goes, man, I trust this person so much that I'm going to put them on the call that we only need 2 stagehands for, you know, but it's a big client, you know, and so pay attention, man. This stuff will really set you up to get to have those opportunities. You'll get to set up video world, these big, huge video worlds and switching systems. You'll get to help set up the big cameras, handhelds, tripods. Like literally, you'll get to be the other person on the other side of that getting to build it. You'll get to be a cable page and a camera op. As a backline hand, this is my specialty, so we're the last in and the first out. You know, as a drum and keyboard and guitar tech, which is what I do, I'm like the last person to show up, you know. Lighting, audio, video, they're all in there. And then here we come in with the band gear. We get set up last and we get out of the way first, by the way. It's important as a backline hand just to listen because backline, we work fast and burst, but then it's like a lot of, hold on, wait for a second. There's not a lot of like heavy lifting as a backline hand, but if you pay attention, you can be super, super helpful. Every band and kit's different. Sometimes I'll get a stagehand, be like, hey man, I'll help you. I'm a drummer myself. And then I'm like, okay, well, cool. But the problem with that mentality oftentimes is they get in their own way and they want to be a little bit too helpful because they know drums. And so they're like trying to set something up and it's like every kit's different. Just because you help set up one drum kit doesn't mean you know how to set up all the drum kits in the way that the tech needs to. And so as a stagehand, your position is to listen, be available, be quiet, and just do what's asked of you. Gloves is an important thing. Sometimes when you're a backline hand and you're taking a keyboard out of its case, if you have gloves on, it can be slippery. And so something to understand, if you ever work with a backline person and you're about to lift keys, hey, take your gloves off, put it in your back pocket real quick, get a better grip. Okay? Sometimes as a backline tech, I might say, hey, can you take your gloves off? Now you know, and you can take your gloves off before you're asked. But on the opposite end, handling cymbals, sometimes drum techs might say, hey, can you wear your gloves handling the cymbals? You know? Remember your road case functions. You know, just remember, you know, that you want to be careful with the gear. Remember your righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Remember, you know, when you start to, especially in backline, there are things that are very similar, like guitar amps are guitar amps, and you'll start to recognize sizes and shapes of cases and stuff like that. Becoming familiar with that stuff is going to be really helpful for you. Yeah, ask if you don't know. Learn the names of the parts and components. You don't have to play drums or keys or whatever, but, you know, hey, it can't hurt to learn what a sustain pedal is or something like that. An example would be when I was with Ariana Grande, I was the drum and keyboard tech, and we had a 4-story stage. My drum tech world was on the 3rd floor underneath the band, underneath the drummer and the bass player. And so at the start of loadout, we wouldn't have forklifts or anything to bring our cases up to us. We're way up there. So I had to line all of my road cases all along the back wall, and I had to get stagehands to help me because I could not come up and down by myself. You know, I have to use stagehands in quickly to take my drums and all of my keys and everything, and I had to point exactly where I wanted my stuff and hope for the best. You know, lots of times my stuff would get broken, put in the wrong compartments. You know, I would say, hey, can you go grab a sustain pedal? And someone would come back with the hi-hat stand. You know, like it happens. You know, I have a picture actually of some Union stagehands actually on that tour. This was 2015. They had my work box, which was heavy. I don't even know how they did it, but they had my work box upside down, going down the stairs. There was 4 of them. And I'm like tearing my drums down, and I look down, I'm like, what the heck? I was so impressed because, like, first of all, the handles are backwards. Their hands had to be getting smushed, you know, like just not understanding what to do and how to do it. And I actually had to stop and get a picture of this. I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, my work box is getting toted down 3 flights of stairs upside down by 4 stagehands. And not one of them thought that this was not right. Oh, man, it's so funny. Stagehands. Like, that's what I'm saying. I know some of this stuff seems so obvious, but this is how stagehands operate on these gigs. And if you can just operate in a little bit of the stuff that I'm sharing with you, you are going to stand out and be miles ahead of every stagehand out there. So good attitude, ask what's next. That's another thing too, is like in all departments, if you're ever a stagehand assigned to a tech and the tech's kind of like, you finish a task, the tech says, hey, go pick this up and bring it over here and whatever. You finish the task, go back to that tech and just say, hey, I just finished that. What's next? You know? Hey, I just finished that. What's next? Let you pester them enough for them to go, oh, shoot, man, that's everything. Hey, you can go back and check in with your steward. You know? Because understand that a tech that's working, they're busy. And so they're in their zone, they're doing their thing. They know that you're there most times. Sometimes they forget, you know. Sometimes they forget to tell you that they're done with you, you know. And so go back and check in with them. It'll help you because then you can get reappropriated and sent to help somebody else. So, and then don't ask for a guitar pick. Most stagehands ask me for guitar picks. And if you're like assigned to me and you're cool, I will give you a guitar pick every time. Every time. Actually, most guitar techs and some drum techs will give sticks and stuff, but like most of us will give you, if you're cool and you're not asking, we'll give it to you. But I can tell it's like I can smell them, especially a lot of the old stagehands. I can smell them from a mile away. I'll be in Guitar World and it's like I feel them. Here they come. It's like, oh God, he's going to ask me for a guitar pick. Here he comes. Oh, you want a guitar pick? Sure, man. It's just a thing. Okay, set carps. I'll be rapid with this. Set very heavy stuff, man. Very heavy stuff. Wear your gloves, pay attention, jump in there and lift, man. We're talking about lifting 4x4s, 4x8s, metal decking, steel, lifting stuff up. You're building elevators and lifts and all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, watch your fingers, pay attention. I posted a video on the Instagram of when I worked with Bon Jovi earlier this year. I filmed our stage push, and what we did was we would build the stage out in the middle of the arena. And then about, 80 or 100 stagehands would wrap around the whole big rolling stage, and we would push the stage from the front of the house in the arena all the way underneath the lighting rig. And we would do this because it allowed us to get the stage built out in the front, get all the backline, all the pyro, all the lighting, all the video, like audio, monitor world. Everything was built onto this rolling platform and this rolling stage. It allowed video and lighting and all of that to get all their stuff up in the air. And then here we come with the 80 or 100 stagehands to make the push. Couldn't do that without stagehands. And it's a really, really impressive feat. And it is all part of the set carp. So people, we all joined the set stagehands at one point to help with this. You're going to be working with coffin keys and cam locks. None of these look like they're cam locked together, these decks. But is a T-handle Allen wrench lock. You'll get to, use that. Same thing, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It's a really common thing. But hey, if you're ever asked, hey, can you lock these decks together? They're going to toss you this T-handle Allen wrench, and you'll see it. Little Allen key. If you don't know, ask. Oh, I'm sorry, right here? Is this where and just turn right? They'll tell you. Your rolling risers, elevators, lifts, catapults, and decks, which is pretty cool stuff. This is one, I was working as a stagehand years ago in Atlanta, and we were working some big show, and this one stagehand, there was this deck car, okay, and these decks are 4x8s like this, but they're stood up, and there's two sides, and they're very heavy, and they're very tippy, And they were out on the arena floor, and this guy, the stagehand, goes to grabs one of the carts himself and starts to go to turn it, and the thing starts to go. Like, we're talking, a ton, and it starts to go down. Well, this guy does what you should not do. He tries to stop it, his little 200-pound self, Get out of the way, let it fall, man. One of my dear friends, Keon, we were working a festival in Atlanta when I was a stagehand growing up, and I just heard it over the radio that this happened. And this is just talking about some of the dangers, like being really careful and listening. Is he was pushing a line array stack on a cart with a bumper on top, the metal part that it gets hung with, and they were going down a wooden kind of loading dock area, and it had been raining the morning earlier, and there was a puddle, and he was on this side of the audio stack, and he's backing down, and all of a sudden the wheels went into the wood, and it was like 10 feet off the ground, and he couldn't jump back quick enough before the whole thing landed on his hips, almost snapped him in half. And I don't think Creon was being uncareful or anything like that. Sometimes it's extreme accidents, but what he did say was that there was some things that could have been prevented, some ways around, some things not paying attention to, things moving too fast, for the speed and for the safety. Like, pay attention, especially when you're dealing with the set and these heavy pieces. Don't try to catch it. Working with forklifts, as a set and scenery person, lifts and all that stuff, you're going to be working with forklifts a lot. You might be the forklift driver hauling some of this stuff. You might get the opportunity to do that, but just understand that put your head on a swivel. You might have forklifts going around everywhere. Like, it's an environment that's fast-paced, and as a stagehand, you're right in the middle of it. When you place risers as a stagehand, you can even ask the technician, hey, do you want me to lock the risers? Every wheel typically has a lock that you can use with your foot to lock the risers in. Riser skirting, if you don't know, the skirting, like this black skirt here, you put it all along the risers. You'll also do that with Velcro. You'll have the opportunity as a stagehand to help dress out the risers to make it look good. Working with stairs, cams, wing nuts, bolts. Obviously, I talked about don't be timid, but this goes back to having that crescent wrench on you. jump in there to do the work. Set car work it's heavy work, man. It's a great career path, by the way. If you're a construction person and you're interested, I mean, this industry needs welders and woodworkers and all kinds of cool stuff. But they work on tours doing that. And as a stagehand, you're going to get to do a lot of that heavy work. Rigging is all the stuff in the air. As a stagehand, you won't typically work with riggers, but you'll push the cases out and you'll help the riggers lay out their stuff. But that's typically about it. But a rigger is a local position. There are local positions that from stagehand you can learn rigging and get into rigging. And rigging is the ability to go up in the roof of these arenas and drop motors and hang the motors and working with things like, flying the motors, all the burlap, shackles, and steel. And like, in order to hang lights and audio and all that stuff, they have to hang these motors, which attaches to everything. And that's what rigging is. And as a stagehand, you're going to get to support the riggers in what they do by basically just laying out their cases and opening stuff up. But eventually, if it's something that you're interested in doing, you could actually move into ground rigging locally to work with the stagehands and the local ground riggers as that specialty. And these are just some of the terminology, some of the vernacular that is good to be as a stagehand understanding of, right? Flying it to trim. Trim is the level of height at which the max is, right? That's called trim. A pickle is the motor control. You know, if a rigger ever says to you, hey, can you go grab me that pickle? They're literally talking about this controller. You know, there's some funny vernacular like that that you're going to learn in all of these different departments as a stagehand. And so this is some of them that you'll learn, utilizing half tons and 1 ton motors and stuff like that. Again, it's just about seeing this stuff initially and being able to understand it. This is a big one for you, and we're almost done here actually. Doing truck packs, okay? You guys are going to be loading all types of trucks and trailers, all right? Some of them have dimensions that are the same, like 53 footers and 24s and 16s. You'll notice as a stagehand in production that cases, road cases are very similar, lighting cases are similar, audio cases are similar, and they all make what's called walls in trucks. And that's what we're trying to do as a loader in a truck pack, is to make secure walls. You're going to literally, like Tetris, build walls. Now, the thing is, as a stagehand, you're there to support the bigger vision, the bigger picture. You're not there having to figure it out, okay? You're there to support the person that knows what the pack is, and it's called calling the pack, okay? The pack is called by either the truck driver or the department lead. I, as a backline tech, I call my own backline pack because I know exactly how it gets in. And on top of that, sometimes I've been on packs where if it's not put in exactly how I've got it, it ain't fitting in the truck. I remember working with Local 2 up in Chicago years ago, and these unions are sometimes tough to deal with. You can't tell them what to do. Been there, done that. Their grandparents were stagehands, and so you just got to deal with the attitude from them. And I remember I was a young guy. I was always been pretty baby-faced on tour. You know, I've been touring for 20 years, believe it or not. But I remember as a young stage manager, I'm trying to load my truck, and I keep telling these stagehands, like, guys, we're gonna have to take this and don't put that there, and and they were just like, yeah, whatever. We know, we're good, And sure enough, get to the last row of the truck, and can't fit all the cases. I literally had to get them to dump half the truck because they wouldn't pay attention to me as stagehand loaders. So let the pack be called by the pack leader, by the person calling it. Even if you do know better, sometimes these people calling the pack are ridiculous and they're just like not sure, and like maybe you dump the truck and you do know better. It's not your place, right? Know your place. Like get over yourself and know your place as a stagehand. Let the pack be called by the leader. So that way, in case something is messed up and you are right, you can say, see? Okay, 2 to 4 truck loaders or loaders per truck. Use proper lifting techniques. I mean, this is basic stuff you guys know. Don't lift with your back, right? Lift with your knees. Things like lifting together. There's a lot of heavy cases, and it is fascinating the physics behind proper lifting techniques, because if you use these handles and call a pack at 1, 2, 3 and lift, like you can lift some huge heavy cases surprisingly pretty easy when things are lifted correctly. But If things aren't synchronized and one loader is lifting wrong or inadequate, you're going to feel it. That's the importance of a load team, is to be on the same page so the other person on the other side of the case is not straining because you're lifting differently or you're not communicating, you're lifting when you want to. This stuff seems so obvious, but it's not. Again, may I remind you, common sense isn't always common practice. Use the handles, man. Let gravity do the work. When you unstack and stack road cases in a truck, okay, and you're packing up the show as a stagehand, push stuff against the wall and let the wall of the truck support your cases. You know, push it against the wall and use it to lift and unlift. Use the wall as added help. Get four hands on it. Four hands on it. Oh, sorry, I had to. Four hands, meaning four stagehands. You know, hey, you got the help. Just get four hands on it. Even if it's a little bit lighter case, it's just so much easier to lift anything with four people. Let one person call it. Obviously, one of the four stagehands, because you guys are the lifters. So even though the person that's telling you where to put the stuff, they're going to tell you where to put the stuff, you, as a stagehand, you're going to be the one that actually says to lift, that actually communicates with the other three. You know, you're being directed, but you're also being in control of how it gets put in there. So be the one to either call it or let someone else call it. When you're working on ramps, and there's two different types of ramps. There's called a dance floor ramp, which is a small, short, 6-foot ramp usually. And then there are full truck ramps at like 14 and 16 feet long. When you're working with ramps, always have somebody on the ramp with the case, backing down the ramp. Somebody on the other side of the case. Always at least, at minimum, have 2 people on a case. Can't hurt to have 4. The more people around the ramp, the better, right? Don't be timid as a stagehand. This is a big thing, especially when stuff's coming out the truck. It happens fast. And so as a stagehand, what you want to do is you want to step up to the back of the truck and be like, I got this. You know, but you will see it. You'll see stagehands at the back of the truck when all that movement's going. You'll see them be like, and not grabbing the case, you know, because they're just, your job is to grab it, to help it down safely and put it where it needs to be. Jump in, you know. Jump in. Don't be afraid of it. Too many people are timid as stagehands, but what we're doing here with this workshop is to teach you how to become an in-demand stagehand, and this is how you do it. Show respect, right? You don't know better than the person calling the pack. Speak up if you feel like you can't lift something. Hey, seriously, you know? And just because, also women, man, I have worked with a lot of women that will be like, I want to load the truck. I can load the truck. And they outwork the guys oftentimes, you know? They outwork the guys. I love it. But a lot of times I'll get guys talking about how they can't lift, and that's a really good thing to be very, very aware of. If you feel like you're going, just be like, hey, dude, I can't get this. You know, it ain't worth it. It's always about safety, man. Always about safety. Create a flat wall, straps and low bars to secure the truck pack. Becoming familiar with the different types of cases we talked about. Working with a forklift. Sometimes you won't use a truck ramp and you'll have a forklift lifting the stuff. Make sure that the one person in the truck, the one stagehand in the truck, is communicating with the fork driver. So many times stagehands will all want to pipe in, hey, up, down, left, right. One person communicate. Maybe it's you, you know. At least you now know. It could be you, but you can be the one to at least say, hey, why don't you call it? You know, you now know how to be better. Diamond the case on a fork. You're going to have cases that need to spin corners. It's called putting the case on diamond. You want to diamond the case when the forks don't fit correctly to make the case wider. Fork channels. Some cases have channels literally built out underneath them for the forks. A lot of the set carps have those. So you want to use the fork channels, being to pay attention to them. Your dock plate is on a loading dock, there's a gap. And sometimes that gap is long enough to where you just can't roll over it. And so there's a metal plate, like a ramp, that is put in between that small gap to help you roll over. It's called a dock plate, okay? And then ramps are stored under the truck. You as a stagehand, you will gather around a truck ramp. It's called a ramp party. We try to make this fun, you know. We call it beaches and worlds and universes and ramp parties, right? And a ramp party is usually one of the last things that you do as a stagehand is your ramp party, where you'll grab the ramp, you'll all walk around, you'll put the ramp underneath the truck and put it away. So, so Stagehand 202, by the way, how was that? Was that cool? Awesome. Yes. Stagehand 202 is learned on the job. You know, there's a reason why I didn't get diving into too much of the technicality stuff is because you need to see this stuff. You know, you've heard the vernacular in this workshop. You're going to get a copy of the book that you can reference it. I do talk a little bit more about some of the terminology in the book, just so you can have a little bit better, deeper understanding. But the main purpose of this workshop, the video workshop that we've done here, is to set you up to now go live Stagehand 202, you know? Because as a stagehand, just getting on the gig is not enough. You know, it's not enough. You know, you need to care a bit more. You know, you need to take pride in what you're doing and why you're doing. You know, if you ever get booked as a stagehand, think about me, you know, when I was trying to be a standby and trying to figure this career out and trying to make it and maybe giving up on myself. We take it for granted all the time, the opportunities that we have, especially as a stagehand work, because it's manual labor. You know, it is manual labor. But guys, you know, you guys are signed up for a show production program. The people in my crew coach community are signed up for touring crew career coaching. And it means that you are trying to get better and trying to figure this business out. And I hope you really understand the effectiveness of becoming a stagehand in your career, no matter what you're trying to do with it, no matter where you're going. If you're trying to be a tour manager, or a merch person, or an audio engineer, a lighting designer, backline tech, stage manager, pyrotechnics, truck driver, bus driver, it doesn't matter what position you want to do. Gift yourself the opportunity of some time as a stagehand. I say gift yourself the opportunity because it is a gift. It's a gift to be able to do the shows, to get this type of experience, to get to work with all of those people that I showed you. Because if you want to do production for a career, then there's no better place, no better proving ground than becoming a stagehand in your local city. Getting in there and actually getting your hands dirty, working with the pros, working with the experts. Yeah, sure, you'll make some money and get a cool free t-shirt that says local crew of some of the shows you work. But more than that, you'll develop as a person. And now you, through this workshop, you're armed with the right approach. You're armed with the right insight and understanding on how to show up to be in demand on the gig as a stagehand, which is what you want. You want to be able to be in demand. You want to be a joy to work with. When someone says, hey, who do you want to put on this call? You want the stagehand booker to say you know? And the way to do that is what we've shown here. You know, some of this is high level and just understanding and learning the vernacular, and some of it is tangible and tactical. But all of it will help you become a better stagehand, become a better person, better crew person, and help you launch into a career. So hopefully this was a great workshop for Stagehand 101. And thank y'all so dang much. You guys can see I love this industry. You know, I love that Jeff has you guys here and that this is offered here because, you know, we need you. Not just as stagehands, but the industry needs you. Every industry needs you. But can I just end with this, guys? The reason why I'm so bullish on the stagehand education, becoming better, the reason why I'm a career coach with touring is because something that we're moving into, and you might have heard talk about this, is the recession. You've heard that we're going into a recession? How many of you have heard this? Going into a recession. Right. He's shaking his head. Guys, what happens in a recession? Does anybody know what happens in a recession? People are more selective on where they spend their money. You know? Right now, in the crew world, because we're back from the pandemic and shows are all coming out at once, we're hurting for crew. We're putting anybody on these gigs. It's why I'm pointing out the obvious way to approach a gig, because people are just there doing the gigs. We're filling the calls right now. But what happens in a recession is not anymore are we just trying to get people. We want to get the right people. We want to make sure that our investment, the money that we're spending on personnel, on vendors and gear, is the right one. We don't want just any crew. We want quality, not just quantity. Right now, though, we just need quantity. That's just where the industry's at right now. We're bouncing back. There's a lot of shows. There's a lot of need for stagehands. So if you want to be a stagehand or any of these roles, now's the time. But eventually, eventually the best stagehands are going to get on the call. Eventually the best audio people, the best video people. That's what happens in a recession. You know, they're still going to be spending the money, but they're going to be spending the money on the right things and the right people. And that's why you're here in Jeff's program and Pinellas Tech, which, by the way, thank you for sponsoring this and let me come and share the stage. But also here with the Stagehand 101 workshop, that's what we do in Crew Coach. You know, we're trying to get you ready, not just for the recession, but we're trying to get you to be all that you can be so you can actually be up for the right opportunities, you know. And it's not just the technical aspect. The technical aspect, guys, you're starting into a career, lifelong education. You know, beyond school, education begins when you put it in experience and application. The technical aspect's forever, you know, but how you show up is literally going to be how you get your gigs. The quality at which you bring to your relationships, your work, the gigs, is exactly what you're going to get in return. You know, if you want quality opportunities, become a quality crew person. You want to make it through this recession and actually build a successful career, become really good at what you do and why you do it, more importantly. There's a lot of great audio engineers and great video engineers and great lighting designers out there, but a lot of them aren't connected with why they're doing it. They're doing it for just a job, and they're no fun to be around, and it shows in their work. You know, it's not about the skill. It's not about the skill. It's how you show up. You know, there's a lot of curmudgeon touring people out there. I've been doing this for 21 years, man. And I still am so grateful, still passionate. I'm not burnt out. I'm not curmudgeoned. It's because I know why I'm doing it, you know? And so hopefully I've shown you why you should do stagehand work, or at least doing what you're doing is so important. So thank you. I love y'all. One resource and I'm done. I promise, Jeff. One resource and I'm done, okay? Go to plsn.com. I think it's .com. Okay. Go to plsn.com, and you're going to, there's also foh.com. Both of these, okay? Go there and get the free magazine subscription, okay? It's free. You can get the digital one if you want, or you can get it shipped to your house, absolutely free, okay? This will bring you into the professional realm of this industry. What these magazines will show you is all of these different productions and tours and shows. They'll show you a breakdown of why the vision was created, why the design looks the way they do, why the mics were chosen, why the lights were chosen, who the crew was, who the manager was, a bit of insight and backstage, peak, their whole gear list, everything, right, of these shows. So you can kind of see what goes into this at a professional level, at a high level, as well as a bunch of company vendors and stuff. Hey, you're in the industry now. Get to know these companies. You're in the industry now, you know, and these are your people. This is your trade magazine. This is your trade magazines, and they're free. So that's all I got. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys.